Listen-only mode.
Hello everybody, this is Brett Lonsdale from Lightning Tools. Welcome to this webinar today on our new SharePoint framework client-side web parts that we're going to be releasing very soon. In fact, I have some great news that one of them is ready to release today. So at the very end of this webinar, I'm going to give you the link where you can download our new version of the Lightning Conductor web part. First of all, it's great to see very familiar names in the attendee list. So welcome back to the webinar. Appreciate you coming back and seeing our products, and of course appreciate you being a fan of Lightning Tools. Before we get going, I'll just, those of you who are not familiar with Lightning Tools, just give you a very quick overview of who we are and what we do. So Lightning Tools is now in its 12th year of providing products for Microsoft SharePoint, and we started out mainly around the business data catalog, as it was then called, which has evolved to business connectivity services. So we had tooling for that, which allowed you to connect to external data sources and bring that data into SharePoint, which is still a challenge today, and hence we still offer the product. And also a number of other tools, and three of those we're going to be looking at today, but under the new format, the SharePoint framework. And that includes our discussion forum tool, which is known as Social Squared. Also our content aggregator, which is the Lightning Conductor, and also the data viewer, which can be used to connect to different data sources and apply data visualization to that data. So the other products that we also do are permissions management, and we focus in on permissions management for end users who are typically business users that may appear to be a site owner or a site collection administrator, and we provide the tooling to them so that they can, within the context of the content that they're managing, they can report and manage permissions inside their department team sites or their project team sites. And then also we have a tool that allows you to customize SharePoint list forms as well. So you can take an existing SharePoint list form and apply better layouts and logic to those list forms, which is known as Lightning Forms. So that's really a quick overview of what we do as a company. We are UK based. We have also a US subsidiary as well. So we provide obviously support to our clients in pretty much worldwide from those two locations. So myself, as I mentioned, my name is Brett Lonsdale. I've been in the SharePoint space for quite some time. Probably like most of you, it was by accident, but yeah, all the way back to 2003 is where I first experienced SharePoint. I was one of those that was developing some web parts without really knowing what I was doing. I was just creating these boxes that said "Hello World" and not really understanding SharePoint at all. But then we've evolved to Microsoft MVP, and also an author of a couple of books as well in the SharePoint space around, again, the business data catalog and business connectivity services. And I'm also a host on a pod show, so you can come and listen to our podcasts if you go to techsplaining.net, and there's a number of different podcasts that we do around interviewing people that are specialists in different areas of Microsoft SharePoint. So what are we talking about today? Well, we're going to look at three different products, as I mentioned. We've got the Lightning Conductor, Social Squared, and Data Viewer. And by no means are these brand new products, but they are built on a new platform from the ground up. And they've been built with the modern sites in mind, with SharePoint Online, but also now SharePoint 2019 as well, which also has the modern UI. And if you use SharePoint 2016, if you have the Feature Pack 2, you've also got support for the SharePoint framework there as well. So you'll also be able to use these products within SharePoint 2016. So we're going to start off talking about the Lightning Conductor, and I want to tell you a few reasons why we've rebuilt the product from the ground up. But the majority of this webinar is going to be demonstrations all the way through. So of course, demo gods sometimes come along. My mother might try to call me halfway through, or all these things can happen. Hopefully it won't, and we'll be able to provide a great demonstration. So what I want to talk about first of all is the Lightning Conductor. So the Lightning Conductor is actually a product that I came up with the idea of probably around about 2004 time, and that was from a student in a SharePoint developer class that I was teaching, and I was talking about there being best practices of having multiple site collections, and he expressed that yeah, if we follow this best practice of having multiple site collections in our SharePoint environment, then how can we aggregate? Because at the time, the content query web part would only aggregate from a single site collection. So that got us developing, and we ended up with our first cross-site collection roll-up tool, which was known as the Lightning Conductor. So we had it available for SharePoint 2007, 2010, 2013, and so on. Still is now. So you can download that as a full trust web part, which works for SharePoint on premises. And we also had the SharePoint add-in available, and we were amongst one of the first companies to launch an add-in. In fact, we had 2 add-ins in the App Store back in 2014 when the App Store was first launched. We were 2 of 10 web parts or apps that were available at the time. So the Lightning Conductor has been around for SharePoint Online for quite some time now, but obviously it's designed for classic sites. And we faced some challenges with SharePoint Online. One of those challenges was really the add-in model. So the add-in model caused us some frustrations. It made me get a lot grayer and so on. And really those challenges were being able to aggregate across site collections. That's why we designed the tool. So we had to redesign it to work with search, which meant that yeah, we weren't seeing real-time updates when maybe somebody changes a task from in progress to completed, and we have to wait for the search index to re-index before we saw that change in the Lightning Conductor. So I'm happy to say that here in the SharePoint framework version, a lot of those restrictions have been removed, and we're also being able to take advantage of the modern UI, the UI fabric, and all the benefits that offers us as far as a nice clean interface. And of course, without these restrictions, it means that we can very easily aggregate content from across site collections using either search or also using REST is the other option. And you can apply formatting very, very easily, which we'll be taking a look at today. If anybody's experienced column formatting at all with JSON, then yeah, it's a headache. So yeah, if we wanted to do conditional formatting inside a SharePoint list inside a SharePoint modern site, then you have to write JSON until well, I'm not sure it's actually reached everybody's tenant yet, but there was an announcement last week at Microsoft Ignite that there is now a UI that you can use to build that JSON within a list. And there was also an announcement of view formatting. So you can apply formatting to an entire view of a SharePoint list. That was made at Ignite as well last week, but that does still require JSON. So the benefit here is we can apply view formatting, we can apply column formatting without code. You don't need to touch your keyboard. You can do it all with the mouse pretty much. So the other main benefit of the Lightning Conductor is the support for hub sites and associated sites. And again, there was some great announcements at Ignite last week. If anybody's not created hub sites yet, it may be that you've not created them because you have to create them using PowerShell, and it's a bit of a headache. But yet later on this year, we're going to see the ability to create hub sites. As a tenant admin, you can create hub sites without PowerShell, and users will be able to, or site owners will be able to associate their sites with a hub site. So this is all exciting announcements coming from Microsoft just last week. So we're moving away in SharePoint Online from this site collection structure to really a flat hierarchy where every site that you create is created as its own site. It doesn't belong in a site collection. But what you can do is associate sites with a hub site. And that means that you inherit things like navigation, and you inherit branding, and all of these other wonderful things inside a modern UI. And that's one of the things that we've developed the Lightning Conductor with in mind as well. So you can very easily aggregate from your associated sites up to a hub site and display that content. So that's probably enough of me talking about it. Let's jump in and take a look. So here I've got a hub site. I've named it SPFx Webinar Hub. And what you'll see is also there's 2 associated sites. So if you haven't seen this yet, I have got a good blog post that I wrote a few months ago. So if you go to lightningtools.com and click onto our blog link, you'll be able to read all about hub sites. But what this allows me to do is basically go through the site information. We can go through and associate a new team site with a hub. And you'll notice if you look at the URL that this is not a child web or a subsite. It is actually a flat hierarchy, but it is associated, which means we do get that navigation, and we also inherit the theme and everything else that is applied through the hub. So it's obviously going to be quite common that you're going to be creating these hub sites, and you're going to have some associated sites that are perhaps all within inside the same department. So for example, you might have a sales hub, but then you've got sales regions, maybe North America sales, EMEA sales, and so on, that are associated sites. And you want to aggregate that content from the associated sites back up to the sales hub. So that's what we'll be able to achieve here. And what I'm going to do first of all is just edit the page. So we can go through and add the Lightning connector onto the page here. So I'll click this little plus icon in the middle of my page to go through and add a web part. So these are all our client web parts. And as I scroll down, we're looking for the Lightning connector here, which we can then go through and select it, and that will drop the Lightning connector onto the page. Now, one of the improvements that we have made is we've really focused on the fact that this Lightning connector is being configured by non-IT people most of the time. So we've got site owners, but those site owners are not necessarily technical. When we're asking them, do you want to aggregate from a site collection, or do you want to aggregate from subsites, or do you want to use a JSON view or a grid view? Most of the time that doesn't really mean anything to those site owners. So what we've done here is we've made it really, really simple. What we can do is click onto configure, and that provides me with this quick configuration interface, which I can just basically go through and answer 3 questions, click save, and I've got my results. Or we can go through into the advanced mode. If you do want to get your hands dirty and configure it very granularly, then you can go into the advanced mode and still do that. But what I want to show you here, first of all, is this new quick configuration interface, where we're not asked anything technical at all. It's just what kind of content do you want to view? And we've looked at what our customers are doing, and most of the time they're aggregating documents or tasks or events or announcements. Of course, a lot of them are also building custom lists with custom content types and so on, but we can't obviously cater for all of those because they are custom. But in that case, you can go into the advanced mode and you can select those custom lists or those custom content types and aggregate that content. But here it's really, really straightforward. If we want to aggregate some tasks, I just choose tasks. And then we look at how you might want to refine those tasks. So do we want to see all of the tasks? Or do we want to see my tasks or my overdue tasks? So if we want to have some real dynamic content, I want to see my tasks here. So every time somebody associates a task with me or assigns a task to me, then it shows up in one central place. Then I can basically select that. And of course, I never have any overdue tasks. I'm always completely on top of my work, so that no point in me showing that one. But yeah, I could go through and select any 3 of those and then get to refine them afterwards. So I'm going to choose all tasks to begin with, and then I get to choose where I want that content to come from. So we can simply say I want it to come from the current site. And there's benefits in that, even though that list belongs to this site. You might have multiple task lists, you might have multiple document libraries within inside the same site, you want to perform an aggregation, or maybe you don't want to write this JSON to build a column format or view format. And in which case you want to stylize your list using the Lightning connector. So you could aggregate from the current site. We could work with the current site and the subsites. So that's looking at really the sort of classic site collections and how we can work with those. We can aggregate content from the current site collection, from the current site and associated sites, which is basically the hub site and associated sites. Or we can go across the entire tenant. And before that scares you too much, all of the results that we're aggregating are all security trimmed. So you're only going to see things that you do have permissions to. And all of that is with the REST API. For those of you who want to know that you're going to get immediate results. So if again somebody changes a task from in progress to completed, you're going to see that result straight away, even if it's coming from the tenant. Or we can really optimize for performance here and use the search engine. So I could use the current site using the search engine, or the current tenant using the search engine as well. You're going to pretty much get down to the millisecond performance for displaying the results, but the results will change with the search index. So it might be every 10 minutes or every 20 minutes, depending on what your interval is for your tenant for refreshing that index there. So what I'm going to do is use this option here, the current site and associated sites. So working with the new hub sites and associated sites. And how do I want to display the results is the next question. So I can display them in a grid view, or I can display them in a calendar. And this is a brand new calendar as well. It's not the, if you're familiar with the Lightning Conductor already, it's not the classic calendar that we had. This is a brand new calendar that we'll be looking at today. So I'm going to choose the grid view option and hit save. So I've not done anything apart from really click my mouse 4 times. So we'll hit save, and we'll now get our results displayed on the page. So so what we've also done is we've selected the sort of most common columns that you may want to see, and they're all displayed here. So we've got the task name, who the task is assigned to, the status of those tasks, the priority, the due date, and the percentage complete. And we've also added a little bit of conditional formatting already for you, so you can see if there's any overdue tasks or not. Now, at this point, you can get changing the view, and you don't have to go back into the advanced dialog. So a couple of things we might want to do is move the columns around. Maybe you don't like the order that we placed them in. So what we can do is just simply click the downward arrow on one of the columns, come down to the column settings, and we can move the column to the right or to the left, just like you would do inside a SharePoint list. So we can move those. We can also add additional columns. So we can go through here and under more settings, sorry if I remember where it is. Show column. So we can go to show column, and this will show me all of the columns. And unlike the out of the box roll-up web parts that you get, we're not showing every single column that's available to SharePoint anywhere. These are all task related from the items that I'm rolling up. So I can just simply go through and select a column that I want to display that's not already displayed, and that will show. And of course, we can hide columns as well as show them. So we can change all of that. We can do a sort, ascending or descending. We can also do filters and advanced filters. The advanced filters allow us to filter across columns. So what I can do here is add a couple of conditions. We might have an or between those, and we could set, for example, the priority is high. And notice how we're fetching these values for you. You don't have to know what the lookup values are. And also we want to know about the due date. So either it's due today or it's high priority. So that could be a filter that we place across columns. And you can even go through and nest additional conditions if you want to. So some more exciting stuff. We can also go through and apply conditional formatting, and you may be thinking, well, there's nothing new there. You've always been able to do conditional formatting in the Lightning Conductor, but this is actually quite exciting. We're not just forecolors and background colors anymore. We've also got things like data bars and icons and things like that that you can set in the view as well. So here on the priority column, what I can do is set the priority to high as my condition. And if it is a high, I don't want to just change the color, but I could just change the color using the color picker here. I want to go through and set an icon, and we've got 3,600 icons for you to choose from with a search. So we can go through and look for a car if we want to, or whatever it might be. So there's pretty much an icon for every occasion. Any new items, for example, you've got the glimmer icon, which is used in document library. So if you could apply this if the document is less than a day old as your conditional formatting, you could go through and apply the glimmer. Or what I'm going to do here is just use a arrow. So I'm going to have the upward arrow, and as I select that, I can then go through and refine the color. So I could change the fore color. So we if it's high priority, let's set it to green, and try and choose a fairly nice shade of green. So we can change that. We can also change the size. We can either have the icon as well as the value, so it'll have the upward pointing arrow and the word hi, or we can just have it set to the icon only. And if you are doing both, then just like the glimmer icon shows in the top left hand corner of a document, you could have the icon just be a small very subtle icon in the left hand corner of the cell, or you can have it positioned to the left or to the right of the cell as well. So I'll just display the icon, we'll hit save, and let's hit save again, and there we go. You can see here we've got the upward pointing arrow for the priority, and of course we could do the downward pointing arrow for low priority, and so on. Okay, so another thing that we might want to do is some conditional formatting using data bars. So I'm going to go across here to the formatting again, and here with the data bars, what we can do is basically go through and set a value. So imagine this could be sales revenue versus sales target or anything like that. I'm just working with a percentage column where the topmost value is 1. So I'm going to set the topmost value here as being 1, and the percentage, of course, is actually a decimal. So 0.5 is 50%, and so on. So the color will pick the color. The color blue is coming from the current theme or the look and feel that I've got on my modern site. So it'll inherit from that, but we can override that and change it. So if you do want to change the color, then feel free to do so. We can change the height of the data bar, which is really useful if you've got another column such as a rich text column, which contains multiple lines. It looks a little bit odd because your data bars are then inconsistent per row. So we can actually go through and set a fixed height for the data bar. And once more, do we want to show the value or hide the value? So I'm going to hide the value there. So we'll hit save. This is not based on a condition, so I can remove the condition, and we'll hit save again. And there we go, we've got our data bars. So now I can see quite clearly all of my tasks and which ones are complete and which ones are still in progress, just at a glance by looking at that percentage complete column. So that's a quick task view. You'll notice up here in the right hand side of the toolbar, I can go through and add another view, and we can give that view a name. So in here we'll call this one calendar, and I could change the original one from default to all tasks. Okay, so we'll have a calendar view. Now the calendar view can work with either events, or it can work with tasks. So I'm going to click onto the configure icon. We'll once again choose tasks. We'll choose all tasks. So we're looking at same content from the current site and associated sites. And this time I'm going to display the results in a calendar, and we'll click save. So that's created the view for me, and it appears here in the view drop down. So we're not taking up real estate of your SharePoint page. You can have multiple views inside the same web part instance. So as we change from the all tasks view to the new calendar view, there it is. So we've got this day, week, and month view where we can go through and see those tasks just displayed on the page here. And of course, you can flick back and forth between the all tasks view or the calendar view there. And you'll also notice that that conditional formatting that was set carries through to the calendar, so you can go through and still apply conditional formatting on any column inside the calendar as well. And if you want to have a similar view to one of the views that you've already got, then you don't have to reconfigure them from scratch anymore. We can simply go down to clone view, and that will take the exact same view and allow you to go through and maybe set a filter or something like that. And you've also got personal views now. So personal views allow you as an end user to go through and build a view that only you are going to see. So you can have your own personal view just like you would do in SharePoint lists out of the box. Okay, so that's a couple of views, and what I do want to show you is the advanced dialog. We can go through to the advanced dialog for an existing configuration. So you can start off with quick view and then go through and refine it in the advanced view. Or when we click this plus icon here, we can create a brand new view. We can give it a name, just like we did before. So I'll change this one to be documents and click onto the configure the view icon. We're going to go straight into the advanced mode. So the advanced mode still has the same 4 tabs that we're used to, and they've just changed a little in the layout. We've got the search rollup provider and the object model rollup provider. And one of the gripes that our customers had was with the search rollup provider, you really had to be a search expert to know how to create rollup sources and things like this. So the advantage here is you can still use the search rollup if you want to, or the object model rollup provider is 20 times faster than it was before under testing in the SharePoint add-in. But we can also go through and select data sources that span multiple site collections. So we're not just working with inside a single site collection when we're using the API. We can go through and select from all of the site collections in our tenant. And you can see there's quite a few of them. So there's not much of a lag in order to display those, and the drop down arrow here allows me to choose from those same scopes that we saw before. So I could choose again the current site and hub sites, or multiple site collections, and so on. So I'll go with the current site and hub sites, and the list type I want to work with is a document library, so I'll go through and select that. Notice how you can expand and collapse these sections as well to hide a lot of the complexity. And then we've also got the item limit, just as we did before, and so on. The persistent and dynamic filters, they're all still there. And then we get to the columns tab. And it's the columns tab where we can go through and build our view out. So here we can select things like the title or the name column for each of the documents. We can select things like the file size, who it was created by, when it was created, and so on. And again, just like before, we can drag those columns up and down. And I've begun to realize that drag and drop doesn't work all that smoothly when you're sharing your screen on a GoToMeeting, but there we go, we've got it up to the top. So there's the name column. You can apply sorting, so that's changed a little bit. We click the sort icon and you can set the sorting priority using numbers. You've got filters as well, just like before, and on the right hand side here, just in case this is a responsive UI, so you'll see the more columns will reduce down to this ellipsis if there's more options than can be displayed. You can still add calculated columns, and as we come down to the display here, we can go through and set all of our data formatting. So we can go through and apply all of that. Short date. You've got your conditional formatting still, summary functions that you can apply, and so on. So the same settings are here. It's just that you've got this granular way of doing it and setting those things in stone. And there's also grouping as well that you can still perform as well. And maybe a couple of things we can show in here. The ability to open up the document, so we can set that on the name column. We can also show the document icon. We can group by folders. If you're still using folders, you can navigate your folder structure, and you can choose whether they're going to be expanded or collapsed by default, and so on. So when we hit save, we then get our new documents view available, which we can go down and select from there. So there's just a handful of documents coming through from the associated sites there. Okay, so that's the new Lightning Connector, and as I mentioned, this is released today. You can go down and download it straight from our website. So there is a link on the latest blog post on our website, so you can begin to use this, add it into your environment, and begin to play around with it. So the next product I want to show you is actually the social tool, which is called Social Squared. So Social Squared is a discussion forum tool. It's not to be confused with Yammer or Teams or anything like that. I'm a huge fan of Yammer and Teams. I think they're absolutely great, but this is a little bit different. It's no better, no worse. It's actually it's a different tool. So if you are interested in maybe cars, or if you're interested in baking or whatever it might be, you've probably searched for something in the past, whether it's been a problem with your car or if it's been a recipe that you're looking for. You probably end up in a forum somewhere, and we've got that same ability with inside SharePoint to build out forums that are organized into forum groups. And one of the announcements that was also made last week at Microsoft Ignite is that when you build a web part under the SharePoint framework, that web part can also be displayed on a tab inside Microsoft Teams. So this is actually a great addition to Microsoft Teams as well. If you imagine you do have a team, maybe for your sales team to obviously share documents, they can get involved in conversations and use Planner and all these other things that you get inside Team. What we can also do is build out a forum where questions can be asked, they can be moderated, they can be replied to, and so on. And it's not that how this differs from something like Yammer is it's not a feed. So you don't get this continual feed of announcements going through. It's structured so that you can navigate to the content that you want to see. So the way that it's structured is by forum group. So you'll notice here that I'm in a marketing site. It's an associated site to my hub, but it's called marketing. And what I've got there for is a forum group called branding, another forum group called conferences, and another forum group called online marketing. Each one can have more than one forum within it. So imagine this could be a technical forum as well. So it might be you're using this for your help desk with the different technologies that you support inside your company. So you may have a SharePoint forum group, you might have a Microsoft Office forum group, a Dynamics forum group, and so on. And under SharePoint, you might have SharePoint development, might have SharePoint team sites or SharePoint lists, where people can go and ask the questions that they want to ask in the appropriate forum. So if we navigate here into our vision under branding, we can go into there. I can see there's two posts, one about logo design and the other one about our 3-year vision. If we click onto the one about our 3-year vision, we can see there's the content. So we've got quite a bit of content in there. Everybody can vote, vote and rate. They can like. They can see this in a threaded view, which is new. So we have a threaded view where you can clearly see the replies, like they would be in something like Facebook. We can mark things as answered. So if I am asking a technical question and somebody replies to it and that's the correct answer, it worked, I can go through and mark that as answered, which would be beneficial to other people that are experiencing the same problem and searching for that problem. You can also subscribe as well. So if I want to subscribe to this topic, if I'm interested in this topic, I want to be notified if there are any replies, I can subscribe to it and then I get notified via email that there has been a response to it. And we can also make it sticky as well with inside the forum. So if it's the most appropriate topic for the forum, then we can keep it at the top. That's what the make sticky would mean. So you might see that make sticky in a cake forum as well. But okay, so in here we've got the right down at the very bottom I can reply, obviously. So when I hit reply, this is what our new editing interface looks like. So I've got the subject, I can click inside the message, and here we've got this nice we've gone away from the ribbon, so we've got this nice little banner here for our rich text formatting and so on. Let's just put a bit of text in here, and what we can do is obviously go through and apply formatting. We've got the ability to highlight. We can obviously do things like aligning and bold, italic, underline, and so on. We can also insert images and so on and so forth. And inserting images, we can just paste in the URL. That will drop the image. And you'll notice when the image lands inside here, we can go through and use all the word wrapping and that sort of thing around that image as well. So it's a lot cleaner. There's a number of different views that we have down on the left-hand side here. So we've got the recent activities view, so we can see a snapshot. We can come in here and see what's new. We've also got the most active users, just me. It's a fairly lonely forum. And I've also got a tag cloud as well. So the tag cloud does look very cloudy at the moment. You can't see anything. So we're in that tag cloud, that will show us any anything that's been tagged, so we can navigate it that way as well. Now, to build out a forum group, really straightforward. We click onto this cog in the top left-hand corner. We can go through and add a new forum group. So we could call this webinars, add our forum group called webinars, and we can click onto view forums and add a new forum. And so we could call this the SPFx webinar. Okay, so we've got a title and a description, and we can add that. And there's some properties that you can change, such as the order and so on. But that's it. If we go back to the Social Squared heading, there's our webinars forum group with our webinar forum, and we can go through and start engaging inside that forum now. People can ask questions, we can respond to them, we can moderate them, and so on and so forth. Okay, so the only other thing to really point out about this, and again, this is an advantage of using the SharePoint framework. A lot of our customers requested help over the last 5 or so years with Social Squared on branding it, and the way that we applied branding was through CSS, and you had to get your hands dirty in CSS to really maybe match your corporate brand. But what we can do now is just simply come through, change the look. So as we click on to change the look here, sorry, this is inheriting the look from my hub site, of course. So what I need to do is navigate up to the hub site. Let's come down here to change the look in the hub site, and we'll maybe go for orange. So notice how that's changed the branding in the Lightning adapter as well. So we can pick up the styles in the Lightning adapter, and when I go down to my marketing associated site, let's just refresh that. And as you can see, it's blue. So thankfully, this is not me failing. This is hub sites failing. I'll just give it another refresh. No, in a moment that will turn orange. So anyway, you saw it work in the Lightning adapter. The same thing would or should work here in Social Squared as well. It will just pick up whatever the theme is for that site. The reason why it didn't is because the associated site wasn't picking up the theme for some reason, but there we go. Okay, so so that was the Social Squared web part. So it's a great tool to get you away from using email constantly inside your organization. Those annoying emails which are announcements or something. In fact, I went to visit a company today that it was actually a law firm, and they were frustrated with literally the amount of emails they get about cakes. So it's who's going to be delivering cakes around the office today, and everybody's clicking on that reply to all button. So what we can do is move that to a forum. You could have a cake forum, and everybody can post their cake recipes and everything in there. It gets it out of your email, and it's a bit of a fun thing in SharePoint to do. Or of course, you could use it for a serious topic around business, and capture lots of business ideas that are trapped in people's minds that they perhaps don't want to share because they're embarrassed to do so in meetings and things like that. So they can expose their ideas through a forum and receive comments on those posts. So the last product we want to look at here is the data viewer. So this has been around for quite some time. It kind of came and went for a while with Lightning Tools. So we introduced it for SharePoint 2007. It, to be honest, didn't sell that well, but then it started to sell after SharePoint Designer lost the Design tab, and you could no longer use the data view inside SharePoint Designer very easily. So we brought it back, and it's evolved to the SharePoint framework today. And we were To be honest, disappointed with our data viewer in SharePoint Online because we couldn't do everything that we could do with the on-premises version. The on-premises version could connect to all sorts of different data types using ODBC, using business connectivity services. You could connect to SharePoint lists. You could connect to SharePoint lists that lived in different site collections. You could connect to XML files and so on. And unfortunately, due to the add-in restrictions, the number of data sources that we could connect to in SharePoint Online was really reduced. So what I'm going to do just very, very quickly is just go back to blue. There we go. So we'll edit the page here, and let's discard the Lightning conductor just so we've got a bit more space to play with, and I'll add the data viewer. So as I scroll down, we'll choose the Lightning data viewer. So that's on the page. I can hit configure, and here's how it works. So I can connect to a SharePoint list. I can connect to business connectivity services, and unlike the add-in that we had, this can connect to tenant scoped entities. So if you've used maybe one of our other products, BCS MetaMan, to build out an application definition file, allowing you to connect to maybe SQL Azure or something else, then you can use that model here and get your data through the data viewer. And the advantage that would give you is obviously the external list gives you the ability to create, update, and delete items and so on. But the data viewer also gets you to easily apply styling to that data, whereas with the external list, you have to do all of that with XSLT, which gets a little bit ugly. So we can connect to BCS. We can also connect to OData or SQL Azure directly. The BCS is really whatever you design a connection to, you'll be able to connect to using the data viewer. So we're connecting more to the more than the data sources that you can see available here. So I'm going to connect to OData, and again, you might have an Oracle database or something like that you want to connect to, and one way of connecting to that is using OData. And again, there's a good blog post that I wrote on building an OData service for an on-premises database that you want to expose and display inside SharePoint Online. So here I'm going to get to an OData service. I want to use the grid view. I can put a refresh button if I want to manually refresh the data, or I can set a refresh interval. So rather than just using the page refresh, we can auto refresh the data as it's changing. And as we go to the data source tab, this will of course vary based upon the data source that you selected under the web part tab. I'm going to just paste in here a OData service, and if you want to play around with the data viewer, it's not ready yet for general availability, but once it is, this is a great place to go to try out some web services. So if you go to services.odata.org, there's a number of different services there that you can play around with without building your own service. So I'll click on to load entities, and that has returned for me data coming from Northwind. So we can see we've got products and customers and employees and bits and pieces like that. So I'm going to choose the products entity, and as I go to the columns tab, we can then see all of the different columns that make up that products entity. So I can do a select all. I don't really need to see the supplier ID or the category ID, but that does bring me onto another subject. Last week, again at Microsoft Ignite, there was an announcement that you can now use webpart connections. So I can hear everybody thinking, well, haven't we always had webpart connections? Yes, but not in modern. So the client-side web parts can now use webpart connections. So what we will be able to do, hopefully by the time this is released, is actually add maybe the suppliers data viewer onto the page showing supply details, and then link that to the products data viewer, so you can click onto a supplier and see the products that are supplied by that supplier. So we can go through and obviously display the supplier ID in that instance. But that's not ready yet in my tenant. I believe it will be available by the end of the year. So we've got the field selected that I want to display. we have the data type set. I can again change the sorting and the filters and so on there. And as we go to the display tab here, we can apply some formatting. So quick and easy things to do. Unit price, for example, in an external list that would actually show with 4 decimal places. It would look really ugly, and it wouldn't have the currency symbol. But I can actually just go through and select currency. That's all I need to do. So it saves you having to go and do that using XSL. We can also set the alignment. I can do grouping. I can do, unlike the Lightning editor here, I can actually just apply formatting. So if I want to just do alternate rows or anything like that, we can do so. And then using the formatting tab is where I can do the conditional formatting. So on the discontinued, I'll once again just use the icons. So I'm not going to add a condition. I'm just going to show a couple of different icons. We'll have there's a spot somewhere. There we go. So I'm going to have a spot here. We'll set the foreground of that spot to green, and leave the size as it is. We'll hit save. Okay. In fact, sorry, we do want a condition. So the condition is the discontinued. Get my logic right here. Discontinued is equal to, oh, never mind. I'll leave it as it is. I'm going to add another one. So, so this one here, we're going to set again an icon where we use the spot, change the color to red, and I might get this the wrong way around, but it doesn't matter too much. Okay, and we'll add the condition for that one. So the discontinued is the opposite. Okay, so we can apply those as so and hit save. And finally, actually just to point out, yeah, there's a number of other things in here that you can also set. But finally, yeah, the grid view settings, we've got a few things like the showing headers, making those headers sticky, how do we want to align the content, and so on. But let's just hit save, and there we go. Didn't quite work out as planned, but yeah, we've got the red spot showing on the wrong column. You can see the conditional formatting applied anyway. That's what counts there. So we can do yeah, conditional formatting. Maybe if the units in stock is getting low, we could change the background color or anything like that, and work with our data that way. Okay, so they are the 3 products that I wanted to show you, and what I'm going to do now is open up for a Q&A. But if you do want to download the Lightning Conductor today, you can do so. There is a 14-day trial, but you can extend that if you want to play with it for a longer time. So just go to, I know this is difficult to remember, and you can't copy and paste from my screen, but let me show you where it is as well. So as you go onto our website, easiest way to go is click onto blog. The latest blog that's available today will have a video showing the Lightning Conductor, and also there's a download link. So as you click onto that download link, that will just ask you which version of the Lightning Conductor you want to trial, and the top option here is the new release, the Lightning Conductor client-side web part SPFx. So that's one that you need to download to experience what I've just demonstrated to you. If you're not using Modern yet, don't worry, you can download the Lightning Conductor for on-premises, and there's also the add-in that you can use as well in SharePoint. And I just want to pre-address a question, because I can see that we do have some existing Lightning Conductor customers on the line here. If you are using either the full trust web part for SharePoint on-prem, or you are using the add-in, and you do have a software assurance contract with us that's current, you can upgrade. So it won't cost you anything to move to the Lightning Conductor. And some better news is you won't have to reconfigure. So you'll notice inside the Lightning Conductor add-in, you can export the configuration, and the Lightning Conductor SharePoint framework can read that configuration. So all you need to do if you want to switch out from using the add-in to using the SharePoint framework version is export your configuration and then import it into the client-side web part, and it will be configured for the same data sources. with the same columns and so on set. Okay, so I'm going to open up for questions. If you want to ask a question, just raise your hand. You should see the raise your hand symbol in the GoToWebinar, and I can then unmute you, and you can ask away. All right. So Brian Scott, let me unmute you. Hi, Brian.
Hey Brett, how you doing?
Very good, thank you.
I just wanted to confirm one thing. So from a on-premise perspective, the new product would work as long as we had Feature Pack 2 installed.
Correct. Yep. You do need to have the SharePoint framework support, and that's what Feature Pack 2 of SharePoint 2016 will give you.
And then you already kind of addressed the licensing thing. Is there a way to, before we make the move, do we try out the product?
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So if you have a non-production environment where you want to play with it, yep, absolutely. You can go ahead and download the trial. Let us know how long you want that trial for. It will come with 14 days out of the box, but yeah, just let us know and we can give you a license key for that period.
And that configuration that you said, is that you know, if we were to make the jump from the add-in to the framework supported version, are there instructions that are available for that that configuration file swapping out on your site or something like that?
I have been up for hours and hours this week writing documentation, and the one section that I thought, okay, this is not that important for today, is how to migrate from the add-in to the SharePoint framework version, but it is coming. So
Okay.
you will see that soon. In fact, the heading is there, but it's set to not visible yet in the documentation. So,
Okay.
all right, it
Well,
will be there soon.
I was just telling my buddy that really always impressed with the work that you and your team do, just kind of staying on the forefront. And it's really exciting to see that you guys are embracing the framework. So looking forward to giving it a try. Thanks for answering my questions.
No problem. Thank you very much, Brian. That's very kind of you. Thanks. Okay, so anybody else have any questions? Scrolling down the list, I don't see a raised hand. So yeah, you can just raise your hand if you want to ask a question about any of those products, or as you can see on the slide, there's my email address, so you can email me any questions. So brett@lightningtools.com, and they will get through to me. I can answer any questions that you might have there as well. So I'll just give it a few more moments, but no, looks like Brian, you were the only one. But yeah, so thank you everybody for attending. This webinar has been recorded. I will be sending the a link out to the recording so you can watch it back. And I think 6 hours from now I'll be rerunning this as well. So if you have any colleagues or anybody that you want to see it another live session, then by all means send them the link to the webinar, and they'll be able to sign up for this evening's. Okay, so many thanks. Look forward to seeing you all again on the next webinar.